first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I'd make her homeless if she didn't leave my wife alone? I, 27 male, have had my mother, 48 female, living in my house since September 2020. My wife, 27 female, gave birth 2 months ago to my son. Ever since my wife and I got married, my mother would make snide remarks at my wife. I was too much of a coward to call it out at first, but I believed, for a while, that it had officially stopped. Besides the unnecessary comments here and there. Edited to add, I stand up for my wife all the time. It's just that for the first year and a half of our relationship, I did cower away. I was afraid to lose my family, but the only family I needed was my wife. My wife and I had very busy schedules, so even though we lived together and were married, we rarely saw each other. She loved her job, but I made a selfish decision to ask her to leave it. She was hesitant, but agreed to it. She still makes money from her small business, but she obviously is now a stay-at-home. My mother ended up losing her home a couple months back. I live the closest and have the biggest home, 10-bedroom, so she came to us. My mother keeps making comments like, she needs a job. She's going to drain you of money? My wife would also come up to me and tell me to not say anything to my mother, that my mother needs somewhere to stay, and that she, my wife, can handle it. I've been in online conferences for the last 2 weeks, so I haven't had much time to spend with my son. For the past 3 days, I haven't had any calls or work to do, so I've been telling my wife to stay in bed and rest so I can look after our son. Yesterday, my wife was asleep in bed when my mother started screaming through our bedroom door, banging on it, calling my wife every name under the sun. When I ran into the corridor, she was screaming like a lunatic. My dogs, Blue Bay Shepherd and Siberian Husky, obviously got very defensive and backed her into a corner. I got into my bedroom and my wife was in the corner of the room crying with her head down. She was terrified. I ran to my mother and said that I'm going to kick her rolled butt to the curb. She wailed that I couldn't do that, but I screamed at her and told her to remember whose house she was in. She started to cry and I told her to pack up and get out by tomorrow. She started screaming, saying she had nowhere to go. I said that she could stay, but if she even looked to wife's direction, I'd kick her onto the street. Now my siblings are saying I'm the a-hole, and that I was too aggressive. I say that's total BS, because how else was I supposed to react to seeing my wife terrified and scared in a corner? I told them to take her, but they say they don't want her stressing them out. The only reason I think I might be the a-hole is because she seemed scared when I yelled at her. That, and because my wife is saying that she doesn't want my family to be mad at her. But I don't care. Now my mother is telling everyone my wife ganged up on her. The only reason I haven't dragged her out yet is because my wife says not to. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your siblings are hypocrites. They don't want their mom to live with them because she would stress them out, but are totally okay with her stressing you and your wife. Exactly. If any family member has a problem with it, then they can take her in. Not the a-hole. I got into my bedroom and my wife was in the corner of the room crying with her head down. She was terrified. If anything, what you did was underreaction to the abuse being hurled at the new mother in her own home. Your wife is being abused and afraid of more mistreatment, which is happening. Your reaction and support of her is everything it should be. Call them out for being toxic to a new mother. Challenge them to change or go low contact. Neither you nor your wife need that. Not the a-hole. She's projecting. You can suck it up all you want, it's up to you. But when anybody, be it mother, dad, or the freaking Pope badmouths your wife, your spine needs to shine. Period. Letting her disrespect your wife only shows that you're okay with it and don't respect your wife either. Your wife is a legend to put up with that for as long as she did, and you're too blind to even see it. Tell the a-hole siblings that you'll relay the message to mother that they are happy to take her in. Let them deal with her attitude instead. Update. She went for a walk, so I grabbed her stuff, threw it in a suitcase, and put it outside. My wife is currently cuddling with our son in bed. Told my brother that if he doesn't get her, she'll be spending the night outside of our padlock-secured gate. My wife has no idea. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that it is her fault that my mom called her the C-word? My mom and my wife hate each other. I spent a lot of time feeling like I had to pick my wife before I realized they are equally at fault and I should not have taken anyone's side. My mom babysat my kids the other night so we could have a date night. When we got home, my mom was asleep and my wife freaked out about how irresponsible that was. But a couple of important things. 1, the kids were also asleep and it was almost 11. 2, my stepdad was there and awake. 3, she was just resting with her head on his lap, so probably not even in a deep sleep. My wife screamed at my mom and called her a witch. My mom said my wife was acting crazy and then said, "Oh my god, you are such a C." My wife freaked out because that word triggers her and told them to get out. I thanked my mom for babysitting and hugged her, so we left on good terms, but my wife said that I should have defended her. I said she overreacted, didn't thank my mom, and if you call someone a witch, you might get called a name you don't like in return. My wife called my mother-in-law in the morning, and my mother-in-law lectured me about how my mom is irresponsible and the kids could have died, which I think is crazy dramatic. My wife and I sleep every night, and if one of the kids needs us, we wake up. My wife said that I should call my mom and lay down boundaries about how she can speak to her, but I said it is her fault for calling her a witch. OMG, you let your wife talk to your mom like that? Everyone sucks here. Your wife for treating your mother so abusively, and you for enabling it. Your mom is just a victim, as are your kids if they are witnessing this. Not sure what your mom and wife are like in other situations, but in this post, your mom did literally nothing wrong. Your wife found a reason to nag, called your mom a terrible name after she was doing you a favor. And now by not shutting it down, you've enabled this crap to the point where your mother-in-law is lecturing you about your mom? Are you just never supposed to fall asleep then? Normally, I'm all about partners supporting each other, but your wife is on a different level. Like, I'm packing up and staying at my parents' house for a couple of weeks kind of level. This right here is the answer. You're the a-hole for letting your wife abuse your mother, who in this story did nothing wrong. Would you let one of your kids scream at your wife and call her names before hugging them and saying you guys are on good terms? Your parents are disappointed in you for allowing them to be abused, and sad for your kids living in this negative environment because they will pick up on the tension with your wife. The real question is, how much damage are you going to do to the kids and with your family before you decide to address the problems? I'm not jumping to leave your wife, but if you guys can't talk and this behavior continues, it's going to be ugly long term, and damage is being done now that may not be repairable. So, I'm a mom and didn't realize I was supposed to never sleep again. How does your wife handle never sleeping? Not a hole. Look, I hate my mother-in-law. Know what I do? I don't ask for favors from people I hate. Your wife is a a-hole. She hates your mother but takes favors from her, and then attacks as soon as she thinks she found a reason to. I don't see why your mother will babysit since it will benefit your irrational wife. Also, the stepfather was present and awake. In what reality would the mom be derelict in her duties? To me, the wife was spoiling for a fight, given their history, and she was grasping onto any excuse, however unreasonable it may be. Your position sounds reasonable, but wow. Can't imagine family members talk to each other like that. It seems very immature for both of these women. This kind of thing will affect the kids, and not in a good way. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my ex's emergency number to the woman pregnant with his niece? For context, my ex's married brother had an affair and got his mistress Olivia pregnant. Their family relies heavily on my ex to fill all of their problems, so has been the person to deal directly with Olivia and her family. I know all of this because my ex and I share a toddler together, so we have been living together during the lockdowns to make childcare easier and to work on things between us. My ex has an emergency number, which he only gives to a select few people. He only gave it to me after he found out I was pregnant. He made it clear I was only supposed to use the number in absolute emergencies, and not just because he wasn't responding fast enough on his regular number. So, my ex is on a business trip currently, and isn't supposed to come back for at least another week. He's barely responded to my messages, so I'm assuming he's very busy. Olivia and her sister showed up to his house and demanded to see him. I explained he wasn't here, and she should call him if it's something important. She said he wasn't replying, and it was an emergency. I messed up by suggesting she call him on his emergency number since he responds a lot faster that way. They asked me for the number, but I didn't want to give it because he's super strict about that number, and I wasn't sure if he would get upset if I gave it out to people, so I refused. I offered to pass along a message if she would tell me what she wanted, but she told me it was a private family matter. They tried to convince me to give the number to them, but I kept refusing, and they eventually left after telling me I was an insensitive B-word, and that I didn't understand what it was like for Olivia, who is about to become a young struggling single mother. I felt bad after they left, so I told my sister about what happened, and she told me I should have just given her the number even if my ex got annoyed, since it might really be an emergency. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Why couldn't Olivia hit up the baby daddy for help or the emergency number? Best to stay out of other people's affairs. Pity you mentioned the secret number at all. He blocked her and won't speak to her at all since everything came out. Oh dear. The situation sounds quite unpleasant and Jerry Springer-like. Best avoid them in future if possible. Not the a-hole. Olivia isn't his problem, and he should probably stay out of that mess. If he wanted them to have the emergency number, they would have it. And if it was really an emergency, they would have told you what was going on so you could call. They would not have cared so much about privacy. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It wasn't your number to give. And I can't think of a true emergency that needs baby daddy's brother. Medical emergencies can be handled by doctors, etc. Are you sure it's the brother's baby? It seems weird to have your brother be the go-between and have a pregnant girl show up on his doorsteps on his brother's behalf. Yes, I'm sure. If the baby was his, he would take responsibility. Also, this isn't the first time he's had to fix things for his brother. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for lashing out on my husband for his reaction to our baby gender reveal? So, me, female 29, and my husband, male 33, have been married for 2 years. I'm now pregnant. First time, and it's been difficult. I have anemia, but I'm getting treatment. We went for the doctor's appointment to find out the gender of our baby. My husband was excited, although he repeatedly said he guaranteed it was a boy with no evidence to back it up. We entered the doctor's office and he didn't stop feeling nervous, making me nervous too. Once the doctor said it was a girl, my husband's face went red. He stared at the doctor, then started asking if she was sure 15 times. He asked if she was sure this wasn't a recording footage of her previous patient, which made me feel embarrassed because this was a dumb question. He has zero idea how ultrasounds works. The doctor laughed, but he asked her to check again, and even tried to act smart to point out that it's actually a boy, but the doctor got it wrong. I told him to stop, but he started lashing out blatantly, saying he wasn't expecting this, and was in fact disappointed with the results. I felt mad, especially after he told the doctor we will be seeing another doctor, then get back to her to tell her she got it wrong, because he guaranteed it was a boy. I waited till we got home. I lashed at him and told him he got no right to speak to the doctor like that and waste her time by getting her to check repeatedly. I said he embarrassed me, and he lashed back saying he has a right to express how he felt and that he was disappointed. We argued. Then he went to call his mom to tell her, although I asked him to wait to do it together. I called him childish for immediately calling his mom and getting her to text me, like it's my fault. I told him I'm going to stay at my mom's for 2 days because this is too much. He asked, how is it childish for me to call my mom and vent a little, but totally okay when you pack to go stay with your mom for 2 days? I was speechless. What response could I possibly have for this? He started texting saying ultrasound wasn't a good idea, but he'll just wait till our baby is born to find out since tests can't be 100% sure anyway. He said he wasn't trying to blame me for being pregnant with a girl, but how I reacted to his reaction. He planned to have 1 kid and that's it, preferably a boy. But it didn't happen, so he was disappointed. Again argued that I overreacted and mishandled his gender disappointment. My sister said I was wrong because his reaction was understandable and that he's free to express how he felt, so I shouldn't try to control his reaction. We're from Canada, by the way, if it's relevant. Not a a-hole. I know people throw around sexist a lot, but if someone is this disappointed about having a daughter instead of a son, they're sexist. Also, you shouldn't have to leave, especially while very pregnant, just because he is being an a-hole. Also, your child being a daughter instead of a son is because his sperm gave the X chromosome, not a Y. He could use an 8th grade biology lesson too. You're right, absolutely. He has an argumentative personality and is always ready to make a big deal out of everything. He told me the problem is that I shouldn't try to control how he reacts and that he has the right to express his feeling. And I'm not against that, but I think he's being unbearable with his behavior. There are things that he seems to be a bit ignorant about, but that I would not excuse, of course. He's throwing a hissy fits and insulting medical professionals because of his own sexism and ignorance. But he's pretending that the problem is somehow your response? Not at all. This isn't an argumentative personality. This is a whole bunch of red flags at once. How do you think he'll respond once your daughter is born? He needs to accept that the baby is a girl before the birth, or else he might react extremely bad. I feel like he only reined in his anger because he is hoping that the doctor was wrong. Wow, does he not realize that his sperm determined the gender of the baby? It's his fault he's having a girl. Gasp. He is an ass and needs to get his crap together. It's one thing to have a little disappointed, let down when you get yourself hyped for one sex or the other. It's completely over the top to do what he did. Not at all. Unless he can control the X and Y in his sperm, it is not his fault. It's nobody's. It is not even a fault. Run while you still can. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.